Bonjour, hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rugby Canada webinar series presented by DHL. I'm very pleased to have you all with us tonight. Tonight I have François Ratier with me to discuss some lessons learned about culture at the couple World Cups that he led our women's 15s team to over the last few years. So we're very happy to have him here with us. He did this presentation a couple of weeks ago in French, and he's here with us again to do it in English for you folks tonight. So very exciting. We were having a chat beforehand, and François has said he's happy to keep this as informal as we want it to. So feel free to interrupt, to jump in with your questions, type them in as they come to you in that question function, and I will do the interrupting of François with any comments or questions that you have. So feel free, type it all in for us. Again, welcome to everyone. I'll remind you that all previous Rugby Canada webinars have been added to our Rugby Canada YouTube page, so feel free to go back and check those out if you missed any of them. And throughout the presentation, as I've said, there is a question function on your dashboard. So just type in your questions in there and we will come to them as soon as they come in. The format of the webinar will be mostly, well, we'll start off with some presentation, but as we've said, type in your questions as they come to you, and we'll probably turn this into a little bit more of a conversation, a little bit more of Q&A, and see where the conversation takes us. So I will hand over the screen to you, François, and we can get going.
Right.
Actually, I didn't even do a proper introduction. François is the technical director at Rugby Quebec. Je m'excuse, mon Dieu. And he, like I said, he led our women's 15s national team to 2 World Cups in 2014 and 2017, and was the interim head coach with our men's 15s program for the ARC competition in, what year was that, François?
16.
In 2016. Thank you.
In the middle of it.
Yeah, right in the middle of everything, as if you didn't have enough to do. All
cool.
right. So I will give you control of the screen, François, and away we go.
All right. Okay.
C'est beau.
Wait, you can see my screen?
I can.
All right, good. Oh, I need to reduce that. Oh. Okay. Oops. Okay, it's good.
It's good.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to talk to you tonight about our adventure or experience with the national team. This is not a class, it's not a course. As Jackie said, it's very open, and please don't hesitate to interrupt. Hopefully you will understand my English. I'm a bit rusty, and I've been always rusty, in fact, but more than ever. And it's about team culture. It's about World Cup experiences, and maybe a couple of tips of couple of things that you could, as a coach, transfer to your reality. So what was right for us is not necessarily right for another organization or another team, but there's some key words or some key things that are always true, I think. So I'm going to start with yeah, so I've changed the quote from the French presentation because this one is easier to translate and to understand. It comes from the Musketeers, it's come from Alexandre Dumas, and it's all for one and one for all. And for us as a team, and my colleagues who were part of that experience and adventure, it was something very important, because nothing would have been possible without this kind of spirit. And we will see later in the presentation, but it was very important for us to be one thing, one unit, one team, not just words, but for real. So I'm going to give you a bit of a context. The national team, the national women's team had a World Cup in 2010. Then they played very, very few games. I think they just had a Nations Cup in 2012, a bit of a tour, etc. We were in a time of transition between 15 and 7. My colleague John Tate was going full time with the 7 centralized program. So in 2013, Rugby Canada appointed me and some of my colleagues to prepare the team for the 2014 World Cup. And so basically we had not a real huge amount of game behind us. We had 1 year to prepare the World Cup, and we didn't know really each other. So it was important for us as a staff and as a group to build a strong culture, because this strong culture would help us to go through all the challenges we would face. For example, it was a pay-to-play model. We had a lack of game, lack of money. Very hard to provide the players some high-performance environment. So that was the challenges. But in the same time, we knew we had very good players across the country. We knew we had very good university systems. Provincial were working out to promote the women's game, and the women's game was growing in Canada at this time, in the world too. But so we knew there was something here. And when we talked with my colleagues, we said, okay, let's build first something strong where the players will be able to express themselves and feel comfortable to come to that environment instead of focusing right away on the performance. So we choose the culture first and betting that the performance will come. We were lucky that the performance came right away, but because we had very good players. That's another story. So what we've done, we met for the first time in Colorado in 2013 for the Nations Cup, and because it was our very first contact with the team and staff, that's the approach we have taken. We have asked the group to ask simple questions about what do we want others to say about us. What do you want, for example, other nations to say about us before they prepare the game against us? And energizer versus energy sappers, what does that mean for you? So we divide them in group. We had a huge meeting with markers and like board and stuff, and everyone was discussing, and at the end we asked them to come back with some keywords. Whatever they wanted, but not sentences, not long story, just keywords. So at the end of this brainstorming, the first time we regrouped together, coaches and team, that was the word that came. Like, we wanted to be fast, risk-taken team, relentless, together, tough, and with a huge work ethic. So from those words, we decided that it could be at least the beginning of our identity, the beginning of something, the beginning of our culture. And our job as a staff, but also as our job as an entire team, it was to make sure that it was not just words, but also actions. For example, were we able to create an environment on and off the field that will permanently help the team to become what they want it to be? For example, if I want the team to be fast, you need to find someone on the support to make sure that your team will improve their speed. If you want to play faster, you need to design your practices to make sure that the game is faster in practice. Same for the other topics. You can't ask your team to take risk in practice, and when they take risk in a game and it's not going well, to smash them. You need to encourage them to take risk and support them in that environment. Same for the other, relentless. Together, very important. But are we creating an environment to make sure that they are comfortable together? Tough, very important, and the work ethic was non-negotiable. So what we've done from that, we decided as a staff and a group to make sure that those words were not just words, but permanent action. And we were talking about that with the leadership group of captain to make sure that those words were really going with us during that time. Energy sappers and energizer, that was the other main topic for us, because the reflection came to keywords again. What is an energy sapper? What is an energizer? So energy sappers, they take time and effort away from things that will help us to perform. For example, the players never happy. Bus is late, food is not good, pitch is too dry, my teammate is not good enough, etc. It's too hot today. No. That's the energy sappers. That's the players you try to not select if possible. And the energizers, but this is the opposite. They put time and effort directly into perform. So let's work out today. People always encouraging each other. Let's meet the challenge, enjoy it. Even when sometimes it's going pretty bad. Let's don't give up, and next time we're gonna beat them, etc. Those people are energizer, and that's the kind of players you want to select, or if you can't select, that this kind of profile that you would like to bring your players to. So we asked them the first time, ask yourself, we're meeting tonight, tomorrow we have the first practice of the entire cycle. Make sure that tomorrow when you show up at the practice, you know who you are, and if you're an energy sappers, you have 24 hours to change. If not, you might be not selected again. So we were lucky enough to have a profile where people get it pretty quickly.
François,
Yes.
you've given us a few examples of I guess behaviors that not only of the energy sappers, but the keywords that the list that you shared on the previous slide. Yeah, which and I remember those words. They're memorable, I would say. Did the team come up with specific behaviors that would characterize some of those words or being an energy sapper? Was that part of the process?
Yeah, in fact, the keywords were more related to the field, and more about what we wanted to achieve on the field and the kind of identity on the field where, England or the States would play against us and say, okay, if we play Canada tomorrow, they are fast, they're taking risks, so we must be on our toes. They never give up, they are tough and they work hard, kind of stuff. And then the sappers and energizer, the majority is more off the field because we've talked about that the last time. But if you're on tour or if you're in a camp and there's 24 hours in a day, let's say you sleep 8 hours, there's still 16 hours. And in those 16 hours, you got 4 hours practice, maybe. So it's a lot of time together where those energy sappers could really, really kill the team and the energy into the team. So one would be more on the field, the other one would be obviously on, but more off the field.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's an interesting graphic here about you all know that, but it's about players and the relation between attitude and effort. And we can see here that we all seen this kind of profile in our teams sometimes in our career of coaches, the victim, so zero effort, zero attitude. It's never my fault. It's always the others. I do nothing, but you know what? That's fine. So that kind of profile is, if possible, someone you don't want in your team. the spectators. So once again, great attitude. You know, the guy is always positive, fantastic, but zero effort. You know, lazy and always watching and say, okay, maybe I'm going to do something, but he or she does nothing. You can see them sometime in practice. Obviously, you don't want to see them in a game. It happens. It happens, unfortunately. Cynical, the opposite. A lot of effort. The guy is very talented, very hard worker, but his attitude is completely against the team. You know, it's all about himself or herself. It's all about, okay, I know I'm good. You don't have to tell me what I have to do, etc., etc. So once again, very, very hard to manage. And you got, I would say, the player everybody would like as a coach is a player who has great attitude and putting all the effort into the game. We all know that not all our players are already in that zone, and sometimes as a coach we need to be able to identify as quick as possible where the players you're coaching take place and help them to change and help them to reach what you want, what is basically someone who's going to put all the effort and will have the right attitude. But it's not a perfect world, but this is definitively a goal you want or you can reach. Any question, Jackie? Hello?
Sorry, that's me being on mute. Not so far. We're still looking good.
Okay, I thought I was on my own. So once again, and now it's more a concrete example of what you could do and what we've done and what you can transfer to your team or group. When we talk about ownership in our team culture, is to keep everyone involved. Whatever is your team, 23 players or 30 players, and plus the staff, plus everyone, is very important that to keep everyone involved, to make sure that this culture is strong. Whatever is your role in that team, you have something to do and you have to something to bring to the team, to refer to the all for one, one for all. So create a leadership group. You can do it or not. We decided to do one, and based on some strong character and players who were able to bring something to the team and who has some profile already of leadership. I put some names here, but those names were obviously not always the same depending the campaign and the time we were together on 4 years time. But it gives you an idea. On field, so we identified the areas were very important for us and where the players could be involved and report and work with the coaching staff to make sure that it's not the coaches dictating the players what they had to do, but more a collaboration where the coaches had a clear vision of what they wanted to achieve with the players' support, with the players' involvement. So you can see we divided into scrum, lineouts, and restart, defense, contact, counter-attack, and game management. We put all the leaders into those boxes, supported by the rest of the team in different groups. So when the scrum coach, Gary Duclos, for example, wanted to meet and talk about a specific topic, he was meeting first the leaders about that topic and then the group, the entire group. So the leaders were able to present, were able to really take part of it. Same for the other topics. Any questions?
Yeah, a really interesting one that's just come in actually. Did you ever have any conflicts within your leadership group, and if so, how did you go about resolving that?
So we were fortunate enough to not really have conflict, but we had discussions. That's a bit different. Conflict is something very aggressive and where at the end maybe no one is really winning, but discussion, yes, we had some discussion.
C'est peut-être la traduction du mot conflit. I know
okay.
conflict in French sometimes, at least conflict in English sometimes doesn't mean at least from my experience, I think you're right. It's a much more aggressive meaning en français.
But,
Um,
but,
it,
but,
it,
but even if it was aggressive, it's all
yeah.
right too, till the leader in charge
Uh-huh.
is able to bring his point or a point on the table with arguments. That's the most important. Then everyone has his character. We'll see that later in the presentation, and it's very important. But we've never been in a position to say to someone, no, we don't want you as a leader because you didn't know. All the leaders who were chosen during that 4 years time, so they change sometimes. They were there for a good reason, and we've never put a leader in place without her agreement, or we didn't want to put any players into a position of pressure that she didn't want to deal with. The most important players is to play first. They're here to play rugby, not necessarily to lead any culture courses into the team. But some of them were able to play and perform and also bring some leadership into the team. I think we were able to work well all together. And when there were some conflicts, it never went too far or into a clash. It was just honest discussions or positive arguments.
And do you think that there were some things that you put in place in terms of your culture that created the environment where players were willing to be challenged and willing to challenge each other?
Yeah. The most important for them, I think, is to understand, and they did, that they could speak freely. And they were in a very open environment where their words would have been listened, and we cared about it. So I think it helps also to limit the numbers of conflicts, because players feel very comfortable to put everything on the table.
Yeah.
So this environment we created was, okay, if you want to say something, please do. Don't wait the next clash, or don't wait to be upset to put it on the table. Just do it now. And I think the environment was bringing that kind of not comfort, but people were comfortable to speak, to be honest.
Yeah. We have another question about the on-field leaders that you have listed here. The question is about the person you've selected for game management, and if is that person your fly half, and if not, who are they? And I know that Julianne played primarily in the back three, but maybe we can talk a little bit about the profile of an athlete that you might be looking for to be your game management leader.
So this example, this example is a leadership group who took place when Zeus was considered as a fly half sometimes. She was also a person who was very very good to understand the game and report and manage a kind of discussion around the game. So, but I put support and halfbacks plus captains, because basically the spine is very important, like 2, 8, 9, 10, 15. And in that case, the game management group was always involving the halfbacks and the captain. Our captain was the number 8, what helped us too, but it was very important for them to be involved, obviously, because they are managing the game. So in World Cups, for example, it was not Zeus anymore in that position, but probably one of the halfbacks. Yeah.
Okay. That's it for now.
Yeah. Okay. So if we keep going on field, I would say organization, it's important also to involve everyone into the report and the preview and the reviews. So we divided the team, as every teams, in 4 groups, like tight forwards, loose forwards, inside backs, and outside backs. and also relationship groups who are more related to the field, like 8-9s or the spine, or 9-10 or back three, etc. And we wanted the players who were not part of the leadership group to take these areas and to make sure they were all involved into the process and not just waiting for the leaders to tell them what to do. So if we play a New Zealand game, we will ask different players than the leadership group to prepare the game. Okay, how do they perform in their tight forward? What are their moves in the loose forward? What are their moves with the backs, etc., etc. And then after the game, same people will review the game, etc., etc. So it keeps everyone involved into the process, the review process and the preview process, and not only the same people who are the coaches and the leaders. So now off the field, it's very important too, because we spend a lot of time together, as I said, and when you're on tour, a lot of time to kill, or a lot of time to try to organize. So instead of having always the manager, we were lucky to have fantastic managers like Megan Howatts or Nicole Crowley in our team, but they were already doing a lot of jobs. So it's important to make sure that all the players are involved off the field, and also it's a good habit for them to be responsible. So we divided in groups. Like, it's not necessarily the same groups for everyone, but for us was food, grocery, supplements, recovery, mobility, entertainment and music, meteo, news, family functions, laundries, equipment, medical, and the sheriff. And every morning when we were meeting together, we were going every groups to make sure that everything was fine and under control every day, to not having bad surprise. But it was, I think, a good way for us to involve all the players in the day-to-day activities.
François, can you talk a little bit about the role of a sheriff? Some of the folks on the call, they might not be familiar with that, with what that role is.
Yeah. So as you all know, when we live with a team, some people are late, some people are doing stupid stuff, some people, So it's important to have a sheriff to make sure that everything is fine, and to give sanctions, funny sanctions, to the players who don't respect the rules. Players or staff, sorry, everyone in the team who don't really do what they have to do. So the sheriff is looking around during all day, and when she sees something wrong, she reported the day after, and some people get some penalties or consequences. But it's always in a fun spirit. It's to make sure that everyone is on their toes every day and don't start to fall into a comfort zone.
Nice, thank you. We have another question that's come up, asking about the men's national team, and if you know if they're set up in a similar way, or if they do things similarly at the World Cup.
So I wasn't at the World Cup, but when I took the team in 2016, I didn't change anything. I just changed the names, obviously. But the approach we had the first time we met in January 16 in Shawnigan Lake, before we play Uruguay 3 weeks or 2 weeks after, whatever. It was pretty intense. It's exactly the same question we asked them. What do you want the other team to think about Canada when they prepare the game? And sappers against energizers. Exactly the same. And we also divided the group into this kind of a organization, because we spent 7 weeks all together on the road. So no, I didn't change anything. It's those approach were put in place by Kieran Crowley, and I was lucky enough to spend time with him as a guest or shadow coach, and I've learned a lot about how he was managing his groups. So most of this come from his work too. So there was sort of continuity in terms of how the players were involved into the group, and not, as I said, in a position where the coach tell you, you do it, what is not very productive, in my opinion, in a short and long term anyway.
Okay.
Does it answer the question?
I think so. I think so. We have another one coming up actually that might be interesting to dive into. And I don't know if this ever came up with this team, but this person is looking for an example maybe of when team values or those keywords were violated in some way. And how did you deal with that as a team, or was it as a team? And how did that impact the team?
So what we have to put in context too is we didn't see each other very often too. So we don't live every day together. But yeah, it happens a bit at the beginning of this cycle, because you need to understand who's who and who's doing what. But it has been every time dealt in a discussion, in a one-on-one discussion, very open. So never, it's not a trial. It's not like you put the player in front of the leaders or whatever and say, okay, no, you didn't do that. No, the head coach must have a sort of a role one moment, and it was mine. And it happens a couple of times that I had to sit down with some players and talk about if they were really, if they really wanted to be a part of it, or if they just wanted to do what they want. So yeah, it happens, but I dealt with it one-on-one.
Okay, thank you.
Because when some, I probably don't know all the conflicts sometimes, because I'm sure the players were able to deal with that between each other. What is for me the best reward, that I don't have to go into it, but obviously characters are different. So when it happens, I'm sure that the players were able to deal with it. And when it comes to me at the end, it's because it was not really, they were not really able to solve it by themselves. So I do it.
I think that's a great point, François. When you put leaders into place and support them and support the team to be autonomous and make their own decisions, then they're likely able to deal with most of that amongst themselves.
Yeah, because at the end, as I said before, the players is here to play first, and not to coach or be a part of a huge organization. It play first, and then so the staff and the coaches are there to make sure that this first step is always the most important, and then to make sure that we release pressure from the players or the leaders from this kind of a thing that's sometimes not going well. That's our job, I think. Okay, so now it's more general, it's you all know that, and we all know this, but do we really pay attention to it with consistency? Because I've got this in my office, but to be honest, I don't know if I'm looking at it every time and I'm on it. But I think it's important to remind those simple principle or keywords when you manage a team or when you try to build a strong culture. So being on time. Obviously, you all know that if you're coaching, someone who's late is an energy sappers. Really, it could happen sometimes, but it's really painful if it's like a sort of habit. So you need to make sure that it doesn't happen. The work ethic and doing extras, that's what you want to implement. That's the culture, was I think, or we think, is something who's going to product, and the Canadian players are very good for this, and that's one of our strengths. Effort. We've talked about that before, but you can't have only a good attitude or fantastic skills if you don't put all the effort. and especially when you have to compete against the best in the world who have way more support than your team has in terms of money, for example, or everything. So the effort is our best weapon, I think. The body language, it fits with the sappers and the energizer. You know, you can be tired, it's all right, on and off the field, but you know, don't show it. It's better. Bring energy, have a positive attitude, even when the day is pretty shitty. You know, it happens. Even when you lose a game and you just want to smash the wall with your head, you know what? The moment you come into the bus, don't start to bash everyone. Just, you know, have a positive attitude or be quiet. It's fine too, but be positive. The passion, not negotiable. You can't play our sport, I think, if you're not passionate. It hurts sometimes, and the passion of our sport is one of the biggest, I think, engine and the biggest. You know, it gives us so many power. Being coachable, you can, as I said before, obviously sit down and argue. It's very important to, as a player, because you play, to have a word to say when it's time to say it, and if it's constructive, and if there's argument. But be coachable. You know, don't be an idiot in the middle of a field and try to argue everything when we start to put something in place. There's time for that, and be prepared. You know, at every level, as a coach, as a player, as a manager, as an organization, be prepared if you want to achieve something. In a team culture, so the losing ways, it's more general, but I think it's pretty true. If you do politics into your team or into your organizations, politics means if you start to put your agenda first before the team, or try to go around and, you know, talk about, you know, it's not really productive. Egos, and I put there versus strong personality or character. So you need very strong personalities, very strong character in a rugby team, because it's a combat sport. So you can't combat or fight on the rugby field if you don't have a strong character or personality. It's positively contagious if you're strong. But sometimes there's a fine line between this and a huge ego. So I prefer strong personality and character that's going to put the group before themselves than the players who will always put themselves in the front of the other and say, okay, did you see what I did, what I do, yeah, I saw that. I got a video. Yeah, thank you. But at the end, are you strong? Are you a strong character? And are you contagious to the team? That's very important. So ego is not a great thing. Personality clashes. Once again, you can fight against each other sometimes. That's fine if it's for a common goal, and if at the end it doesn't take too long. You know, you can fight in a practice, but you shake hand at the end, and it's all right. So those kind of personality clashes, as a coach or person in charge, this is something you need to identify pretty quickly. And once again, sit down, have a good chat, and try to make sure that you minimize it and reduce it to the minimum. Blaming each other, blaming the others, you know, it's a terrible it's a terrible way to build a team. It's not me, she didn't pass me the ball, it's her fault, I was in a good position, etc., etc. So that's something also you need to make sure that if you got some kind of players like that, once again, sit down and try to make them think about that and how it's negative for the team. The resistance to change. It doesn't mean that you have to change every time everything, but you need to be open sometimes to go from a way of a style of play to another one if the game has changed. You know, we don't play now that we were playing in the 90s, in the etc., etc. So the one who resisted to that, the disappear. You know, at the end of it, the lack of honesty. If you tell something to a player, you can't lie to her or him and say something else to another one and try to start this politics stuff. No, be honest, in the team, with teammates and coaches, with players and colleagues, to make sure that this environment is honest. And selfishness. Can't play rugby if you're selfish. It's obvious, but sometimes it happens. So at the opposite, the winning ways. Be honest, be unique if possible, but once again, don't try to force it. Sometimes it's a long process to go to that uniqueness. The difference too, it's something that I think it's a positive to have a lot of difference within the team and to be different than the others. But at the end, we're practicing and we're doing the same sport, taking risk. Well, I was so happy when I saw that the team wanted to take risk, because I wanted, but I didn't want to force anyone to do it. Doing it first when you can, try to invent something, try to do that, I don't know, that plays first, that line out first, that things first, that the other didn't think about, but obviously they thought about it, so we are at the same point. Make sure that the leadership is there, and you as a coach or organization, make sure that those leaders are valued and they are comfortable to take their place and spot into the group or organization. Try to accelerate change when it's possible. Make sure that you improve continuously. So that's an evidence, but it's important that you can't play. When we started in 2013, the way we played was different in 2017, obviously. Change and selfness, because as we said before, selfish and rugby doesn't fit really together. Any question about that?
Yeah, François, they're all very interesting, and so I think some folks are wondering what influenced your philosophy. So, how did you get to these to some of these points? Maybe specifically around risk taking. That's probably part of your personal philosophy, but others may not feel that way, and so we're wondering what influenced your philosophy, and are there any specific coaches or books or resources that you would recommend?
Yeah. So on a big picture, as I said, on that particular topic, you don't want to force people to do things that they don't want to do. That's So risk taking, for example, you got two scenarios, or you already have inside your team, and I was lucky enough to have this kind of profile who want to take risk, and it comes from them anyway, or you don't, and you're not very comfortable as a coach. Say, oh, I'm going to take risk, but the first game I'm going to lose. My organization or my school or my university was just, I'm not. But once again, you need sometimes just to make sure that you take a sort of a line and bring players and make them realizing by setting up some stuff in practice, for example, that it's not risk at the end. It's just, oh well, we can do it. It's just the addition of skills and practicing, and they realize that risk taking becomes more and more a risk, but less and less a risk, but more and more just the game. So there's a lot of all my influences or author are French, so maybe not the right night to talk about their name, but Pierre Villepreux, who's a French coach and was in charge of many stuff at World Rugby, is one of very big influencer where he was in the 70s the first one who started to put the players in the front of in the middle of the decision. So everything about Pierre Villepreux or Wayne Smith for the All Blacks, or many English or UK coaches worked a lot on this players' responsibilities or player ownership, or taking the game for them and not the coach telling them what to do. So all books around that player central approach is important, I think, and you will find a lot of resources there to be comfortable with risk taking, for example, but other things too, like leadership.
You also talked about the difference in players, or maybe the diversity of players, and that being a strength. Would you say that the diversity of background or playing styles, maybe the diversity of rugby they've been exposed to, is a strength as well?
It's a huge strength. You don't want robots. You don't want the sort of a only way to play rugby or only way to. I didn't want to have soldiers in front of me. You know what I mean? Like or robots. Okay, and the staff I was working with was the same. We wanted humans first, and we wanted people with stories, people with different background, if they were able to transfer it on a positive way to the team. You know, some of them started rugby 2 years before the World Cup, but they had such huge background that they were able to transfer it to rugby. Some of them played rugby since they were 10, etc., etc. Some of them were university, as a university background. Some didn't. Some were workers. Some went. So that's a huge strength. Yes. The big mistake would be to select a team where everyone will look the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. We have an interesting question that's come through about other teams at the World Cup, and wondering if some of the team cultures, if any of the other cultures that you witnessed from other teams at the World Cup, if anything resonated for you, or maybe if you looked at any of the other things that other teams were doing and went, "Oh, that's interesting." Like, I
Yeah.
wonder how that could.
Yeah, we always observing each other. Not really at the World Cup, but in between. It's important. The other
Too much
team
to
does
think
that.
about at the World Cup.
Yeah, but yeah, the thing is, in 2014, for example, I had the chance to sit down with all my colleagues at some point, and we were really aware of this 2014 World Cup was a turning point for women's rugby. If we were not able to make that game attractive, fast, and entertaining, we would have been in a spot where spectators, sponsor, whatever, would have started to question it. So I know that for the 14 World Cup and beyond, everyone was at least on the same page on what kind of, or at least the big nations, on what kind of rugby we wanted to play. Then you can always see some specificity based on which country, you know. We know that the Canadian way to approach things is very respectful of the field. We, you know, for example, say hi to everyone, say thank you, make sure that we don't leave a mess into the change room or leave a mess into the. That's very positive. Other teams were different, but you can see every, you know, main character coming up. Yes, but then inside the engine, I'm pretty sure we all do the same in terms of no one's want a cancer in his team. No one wants someone who's gonna create some trouble in his team. So maybe different approach, but at the end, you all want the same, the best team as possible with the best human and players as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. No more questions coming up for now. Did you have more presentation that
Nope.
you wanted to get through? No? Okay, so I'll just open it back up to the floor for any questions that anyone might have been hanging on to throughout the presentation. We do still have a few minutes to get to a few more questions, folks. But on the topic of different cultures in other countries, I had a friend who played some level of men's professional rugby in France, and he said it was so interesting that when he'd come into the changing room, everyone would stand up and shake everyone's hand. And it would happen every time someone came into the dressing room. So you'd be, trying to get ready for your practice or whatever, but every time someone new would come in, you'd stand
Yeah,
up and shake hands. Oh, salut, ça va, So
I think
it was interesting.
I think it's important that once again you don't force things. I was born in France. I've been raised in France. I played my rugby in France. Moved to Canada 20 years ago. But the last thing I wanted to do when I started to work with Canadian players is to tell them that, okay, we do that in France, so you're going to do it. For example,
Yeah.
that's completely wrong. First, you have to understand where you have to understand where you are. I started here in 2003, but I really started with the national team in 2013. This one. In between, I had the chance to work with Canada U18 or U17, sorry, men, women, etc. Be involved in camps. But at the end, when we started to work with this team, I knew where I was. You know what I mean? I knew exactly what was the environment, what was the country, what was the spirit into that team, and try to maximize what I knew from this environment, and not try to transpose a culture to another one, because I don't think it works very well. So yeah, in France they shake hands. In England or in the Anglo-Saxon rugby, they don't really smash the wall with their head. They do that in French or Argentina, or it's very disturbing. But at the end, that's very different culture. But I think what works is to have a clear understanding of where you are and a good feeling of who is in front of you as a player or colleagues. And based on that, then you can start to build what you think is the strongest culture for your environment. But I think it's very different for everyone.
I think that's a good point. And on that note, it being different for every team, for every person, would there be something now, now that you've been through both of these World Cups and moved maybe into a different role, evolved in terms of your coaching and philosophy? Is there anything that you would change that you did at either of those World Cups that now you look back on and you would maybe do differently?
Yeah, probably, of course, because we didn't win it. So I should have done something. I should have done something differently. But from 13 to 17, uh, I kept. I know my colleague did the same, but I kept working on my rugby and understanding by connected with other coaches and keep working and keep try to always find what could fit with to improve the team, to improve the game, to improve everything. And I think at the end in 17, I was close to reach something globally. I would say I'm missing maybe 2 or 3 years after to to achieve something like more complete. But what I've learned from those experiences and in my daily life is all those principles we've talked about before. When you apply it and when you try to be close to it, life is easier and better. So that's what I've learned. What I've also learned from those experiences, human is human together, team together is a fantastic uh, experience. I mean, there's always one world champion for sure, but the way those players are. I'm talking about the two World Cups, also the American Rugby Championship with the men. All those experiences were a fantastic human experience. And it's super important as a coaches that we never forget that in front of us it's people. It's human first with so many things to offer, and you got not too much time to find out and put them to the maximum they can. So that's the coaching art, and I think it's taking a life. To be honest, I think the best coaches are probably 70 years old. but they're dead. But they're dead. Too much stress. Yeah. So
Thank you for that.
what I've learned from that is a fantastic human experience. To be honest, I think I would never change anything from that. But obviously on the field, then maybe change a couple of things to win. But you know that after.
For sure. Hindsight is 2020. We have a question here that's maybe a little bit will diverge in terms of topic here, but we have a question from a player that's looking to get to the next level, you know, and you know, doing well at the club level, but wanting to get maybe into provincial and starting at the provincial level. So looking for any advice that you might have for those players looking to break onto the provincial scene and be noticed.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the provincial scene. I think it's a good first step to connect with the provincial team and start to go to some tryouts and open tryouts. There's always open tryouts in every provinces where you can start to measure yourself and express yourself. I know that the coaches everywhere are always open to take questions and give feedback. But the only advice I would give to these kind of players is take every opportunities to play, take every opportunities to train, and most important, enjoy it too. It can't be an obsession, like a negative obsession. Say, I want to do the national team, I want to do, and if it doesn't happen, then you get very, very bad feelings. Where at the opposite, okay, it's your ultimate goal, make the national team, and then obviously progress into the national team. What does it take for that? It's pretty easy to rank everything you need to do to reach that level. And if you think you have a chance, if you think that you're competent, minimally competent into those topics, go. Don't hesitate. You know, there's no one. You know, it's sometimes it's just dreams. I will never make it, but you know what? Most of people I know made it, and they never thought that they would make it. So work super hard, and every opportunity is to play rugby. That's what you have to do.
It's great advice. We have on that note of maybe selections and looking at players. There's a question from a coach here wondering which domestic rugby did you watch most to identify players? Was it provincial and which age grade, university, club?
So at the senior women's level, because we have I think a fantastic, and it's a strength, a fantastic university system in a women's game. They can train every day. They are in a great environment. There's a lot of good coaches in this environment who are supportive, are still supportive of the national team. So I think that's mainly where I think it's the same for my colleague on the sevens, but where we identify most of the players. Provincial programs, obviously, too, because it's important that, in my opinion, that they represent their province to play for the national team. It's not mandatory because we don't have a competition structure strong enough to force players, because it's always pay to play extra. But at the end, I know for a fact that all the players who were involved in the national team were playing also for their provincial team, and most of them were coming from at least university systems. So that's where I was looking at. But for my U20 colleague or U18 colleague, obviously they're going to high schools and college and etc. But mainly our university system is a very good resource, and hopefully it's going to continue.
Mm-hmm. And maybe one more question to close off. Did you find any differences in building cultures in men's teams versus women's teams?
Yes and no. The contexts were different. For the women, I knew I thought I could have 4 years to do something, and I did. So, but the first time we just had 1 year before the first World Cup, and then 3 other years before the second one. So it was more on a long-term progression. For the men, it was so short, so right away when I had to make a decision early. They called me to tell me, you got the team, you're going to take care of the team with your colleagues in January, and the first game is so. We were in a sort of such of an emergency that I didn't take the time to think if it was completely right or completely wrong. But what I've learned, and there's some good books about it. If when you're coaching women in general, it's not a cliche, but it's general. Okay, so don't hit me or throw me. They're more interested on the why. Why are we doing it? Why do we do that activities, or why? And the men were more interested on how. How do we do it? So tell us the plan, do it. So that's I don't mean that both are completely separated, because how and why are always consistently there, but it was for me a main observation. So, but instead of that, it was the same process.
I would have to agree with you there, François. Not that I have that much experience coaching men, but certainly in coaching women, and when I was playing, I was very interested in the why, and I find that for sure, and players are more. I found often more interested in putting effort in if they understand why and how it relates to the bigger picture.
And if you take the spectrum, you got some guy. They really want to know why first, but it's not a majority. So it's more a global observation, and it's important for some of the women's player who are always asking question what is positive. As a coach, sometimes you say, okay, enough questions. Just do it now. It's important. And at the opposite for some of the players I used to coach, and I still coaching, say, okay, can you just ask yourself why we're doing it sometimes instead of just doing it? And but it's once again, it's coaching. It's our role as a coach to make sure that players always think about what they're doing. Some of them should stop thinking, and some of them should think more. But them, and at the end, they're always good players. That's most important.
Well, you've touched on another topic that I think we could have a whole other webinar on, is the art of asking the right question.
So many.
But thank you for that, and thank you, François, for sharing your insight and answering our questions. It's been very interesting and quite enlightening. Thank you to everyone who has jumped in and participated in this webinar, sent in your questions, really
Cheers.
Contributed to Merci. Really contributed to our conversation. Our next webinar is next Thursday, same bat time, same bat place. And really excited to talk about some mental health and mental performance with a couple former national senior women's team players. Summer Christie and Carolyn McEwen will be with us next week. It'll be a lot of fun and really pertinent for athletes and coaches and anyone who is involved in the game right now. How do we support each other and practice some self-compassion in these times? So join us next week for that. I will remind everyone that there still is a ban on rugby activities, and Rugby Canada will be coming out with an update for everyone no later than at the end of June. So stay tuned for that. Any last points to end us off with, François?
No, thanks for your time, all of you, and hopefully, as Jackie said, we can come back on the field as quick as possible, because it's long.
It is. I agree. It is long. It is long. Well, stay safe, everyone. Support each other. Thank you for being with us. Merci encore, François.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Have a great night. Good night.
Good night.